welcome Jonathan Smith, the Chief Operating Officer and founder of Shore Solutions.
Thanks, Richard. Thank you very much. I initially did get into the industry. Very typical of people that get into the call center industry out of Australia. It generally tends to be a very, very transient sort of a population to get into the BPO. If you look at the top 100 ranked outsourcing destinations in the world at the moment, we've actually got the Philippines, Manila, ranked at number 2. We have Cebu City ranked at number 8. Outside that, we've also got Davao, Santa Rosa, Bacolod, Iloilo, and Baguio also rating in the top 100, which is an enormous thing for the Philippines. There's a couple of figures we've got here, which I'm just going to, a little bit complicated, so I'm just going to actually read to you directly. The Indian BPO sector continues to lose the grip and has lost 10% market share over the last 5 years. Most BPO locators are preferring the Philippines due to the quality and the quantity of the workforce and the cultural affinity. This is even though there's a couple of things in looking into it that were interesting. Firstly, a smarter utilisation of space, which wasn't something that I would have thought of, and sounds negative, but it's not, okay? The average space utilised for an agent station has gone from 8 square metres to around about 5.5 square metres. However, having said that, the quality of the working environment that's produced, even though that space is slightly smaller, is of a far higher standard than you're going to get if you're looking at India or Malaysia, for example. It's been a smart way to bring down the costs. The other thing being strong government support. Everyone talks about obviously there's PESA, who've been fantastic for us, and are an enormous attraction for for foreign businesses. Some of the things going on beyond just PESA need to be taken into account as well. Some of the activities by IBPAP, for example, are huge, not only for the BPO industry, but for the industries across the board. Okay, into what we've learned as one of the main things on the way. A company's success depends on its people. When you're acquiring a company, there's always a reason. There's 2 reasons people want to sell a company. It's either performing really, really well and people want their payday, or it's performing really, really badly and they have to get out. In this case, we picked up something that was not performing at its best, but thought we could turn it around. And what it came down to was very much a people thing, very, very much a people thing. What we were looking at was leadership without direction. We had a lot of the right people, a lot of really good people, some of which are actually sitting here with us today, but they were in the wrong roles. Okay, good people, good talent, sitting in the wrong roles. There was a high level of dysfunction, and the thing that drives me insane, if you like, about looking at any operation is that siloed attitude to things. Okay, and what you notice in a company that's not functioning is everyone works in their own little silo. No one actually understands what the end goal needs to be, okay? You got people that are doing their job, caught up in the detail of their day-to-day piece, with absolutely no understanding of what the end output needs to be. And even beyond that, how does their job actually affect good output and keep their clients happy, okay? All the stats in the world can mean one thing, but if you're, as an outsourcer, if your clients' clients aren't happy, you've failed. You can present all the KPIs in the world you like, but if your clients' clients are not happy, you've failed. The basic way you would look at it, and these are the things that need to happen to keep the people happy. targeted recruitment, getting the right people, putting them in the right places. And I'll talk about this from a BPO background, but this is the same across the board. This is relevant in any industry. Targeted recruitment, tailor-fitted training programs. The approach can't be a cookie-cutter approach. Okay, tailor-fitted training programs that'll actually get the outcome that you need. Continuous learning and development, that's the way you hang on to your really good people. Consistent performance management, and the word consistent is the important thing there. On the captive side of things, a lot of captives tend to look on, the attitude tends to be, okay, we're going to go in, we're going to double the salary. We're going to double the salary of the standard rate out there, and we're going to get all the best people. Okay, I can understand why someone would do that. There's a downside to that, okay? If you're looking at, for example, an employee that you'd normally pay, say, 30,000 pesos a month. Someone comes in and decides, that's it, I want all the best people. Apart from the disruption it causes to the industry in general, I'm going to pay them 60,000 a month, okay? Okay, all good and well, all good and well. So you're taking your hourly cost from around about, $5.60 an hour for the employee side of things to say $11 an hour. And that's fine now. That's all good and fine now. But what happens in 5 years' time? Okay, what happens in 5 years' time? Sure, you've made a gain on your balance sheet now. Everything looks good now. It'll look good next year too, probably. But what's going to happen in 5 years' time? In 5 years' time, taking an inflation rate of, say, 4% into account, okay, that extra, the 30,000 peso employee will now cost you $6.60 an hour, okay? The one that you've upped to 60,000 is now costing you $12.50 per hour, okay, which is starting to become a little bit of a problem. And that's not even taking into account the fact that power will increase, that your rents are going to increase as well. As we all know, power can be a problem as far as cost goes here. There seems to be work going on to rectify that, but we all know it's not there yet, okay, and it can be a real issue. They're just not going to be a long-term solution. They'll be there for the short term and probably leave you, in our industry anyway, and probably leave you and go to someone else who'll give them a cheaper price in a couple of years' time. And it's as simple as that. All of the big guys were already here. There was hundreds of thousands of call center seats and BPO seats operating here. Effectively what we had to do was come up with a few different options. And we thought for a couple of years we lost business we really should have won. Quite arrogantly, to be honest, thinking we do 100% outsourcing and that's what we do. And if the client doesn't want us to handle the entire thing, there's something wrong with them, they don't understand it, we'll move on to our next client. So after losing numerous deals, which we really should have won and had all the skill to get hold of, we thought, okay, we're going to change our approach. And so I came up with a few different models. I guess today we've gone from being someone that offers pure outsourcing, which is one of our offerings, to a co-sourcing model whereby we just handle the employee compensation and benefits, the shared support services, and the asset services, to straight out facilities outsourcing where people can just take a facility, and if they want to pick off a menu of other services such as recruitment or payroll management, that kind of thing, we can offer them that as well. I'll run you through just a little sort of an evolution slide of us here. Established ourselves in 2005 purely as an offshore consultancy. All we wanted to do then was to help other companies that may have some need to offshore, put a feasibility study there together for them, put a project plan for them, and help them to actually execute on that project plan. 2010, we established the contact center operations with a very collaborative, hands-on approach. Our idea was initially that if we're going to go into competition with guys like your Teletechs and people like that, there's absolutely no point in trying to go toe-to-toe with these guys. They've got that very much the cookie-cutter approach, I guess, for the want of a better term. They've got that down pat. They've got all the volume in the world. They've got all the process for recruitment and all that sort of thing, a massive amount of branding. There's absolutely no point in us going toe-to-toe with these guys. When you start succeeding a little bit, it presents another problem. As with any business, you need to understand what your clients' needs are. And the next challenge that we saw was that all of a sudden it was great that we were dealing with all these different geographies. And that was great, but all these different geographies had completely different needs and needed to be treated in a completely different way, which we hadn't really taken into account. I guess on the Philippine side there, we've sort of blocked out the names. They're a little bit more sensitive to things, so we haven't put the names of the Philippine companies we deal with. But we're dealing with financials, telcos, food service, that kind of thing. On the Australian side, we're dealing with the likes of your Woolworths, Whirlpools, Samsungs, debt collection through Baycorp, all that sort of thing. On the US side, it's very much telco and IT support based, and fairly technical IT support, which initially really wasn't our thing. The point I'm getting to here is that all of these different clients require a completely different style of interaction, which was something we just hadn't taken into account. There's not one, again, there's not one just cookie cutter approach for running your operations. There's also not one cookie cutter approach for dealing with your clients. Anyway, a year later, I looked back on that and thought, oh my God, I can't believe I thought I knew what was going on a year ago. A year after, but now I know what's going on. The next year, I thought to myself, you know what, I cannot believe I thought I knew what was going on that year, but now I've got it. Anyway, this went on for about 5 or 6 years. In the end, you know, it occurred to me that there are certain things culturally that you're never going to get, okay? These are just some diagrams that you may or not have seen before, that someone put together some years ago that just describe differences between the Eastern and Western cultures. So I'll just put a couple of those up. If we start on the left here, the opinion. Okay, for me, bang, I've got an opinion, that's it. I guess the Asian way of doing things might be a little bit more of a roundabout way to get to that opinion. Problem handling, I guess sort of the Western way, I guess, would be to go attack the problem. Okay, I guess the Asian way is a little bit more to sort of move around that problem. The way trends have developed. In Australia, for example, it's trendy to eat Asian food. It's trendy to eat with chopsticks, the likes. Okay, across Asia, it's gone the other way. It's more the Western style food. That's now the trendy thing that you want to go out to do. Punctuality is the one that gets everybody, especially when they first arrive here. How many times I've heard someone say, I cannot believe these guys are late for a meeting. I set this meeting for 10 o'clock. I can't believe these guys are late again. But it's the different meaning of punctuality. It might be a little bit early, it might be a little bit after, but that's the way it works. Anger, it's fairly obvious. In my case, if I'm in a really bad mood, it's a fairly obvious thing. Generally, with a lot of the Asian way is more to sort of hide that bad mood and sort of smile through the day and sort of deal with it later. And that's got to be understood. You know, that's something that really needs to be understood, and this is part of cultural training that people need to get, okay? The other one, I guess this sense of the boss, okay? What I'm all about, and I've always found a little harder to do than I would have thought, is to empower people, okay? And it's not enough just to say to people, you're empowered, you can make this decision, okay? And it's a little bit due to that, I guess, that perception of the boss, I guess. And I don't think it's as extreme in the Philippines, to be honest, because the Philippines is a lot more westernized than a lot of other Asian countries. It's its own thing, very much. But there's still an element of this that exists. You know, the boss, I guess, on the Western side of things is someone who's just a little bit above everybody else, who collaborates. I guess the more the Asian side of things is the boss is the big boss. You know, that's it. I won't make a decision without checking with the boss. What that does, I guess the knock-on effect of that is that people can fail to get that sense of accountability, of responsibility. Okay, and that's something we need to, we need to instill in people. Here's the other interesting cultural group that we're dealing with, and it wasn't until a while ago, this one took me until recently to understand what I was dealing with, okay? Especially in the BPO industry. You know, you're dealing with Gen Ys and millennials. And they genuinely think differently to the way I was taught to think. Okay, and that's I've got to be honest. It probably took me until this year to get it, and I'd be trying to communicate things in one way and wondering why the message just wasn't getting across. And this is without trying to give it too much of a plug. Okay, this is just something that we've done. I mentioned that we were the SAP SuccessFactors partner, so I'm not going to get into it too much. All I want to get across is the message that, look, this is one way we're dealing with this. Okay, what this does is provides an area for work groups. It provides internal instant communication. It provides self-fulfilled learning. People can go to things and put themselves through courses at their own speed. Okay, they can log in and out to it as they please. It basically addresses the needs of our millennial-style employees. And to me, understanding that is the absolute key in keeping things moving forward. You know, understanding that there's kind of an old way of doing business, and there's a place for that still, but things have really changed. Things have really changed. Just in summary, I guess, just to go through what we've, just the things that I've touched on here. You know, the Philippines is the best place for offshoring. A company's success does depend entirely on its people. As much as you can technologically enable, it does depend entirely on its people. Quality does trump cost, okay? When people are looking to offshoring, don't necessarily give in to cost. Its quality does trump cost. Differentiation from the other players in the market is important. You know, especially for us, we were a company that came into a very mature market already. Reevaluating your business is critical, and understanding the cultural differences, adapt and refine as you go. And I guess that's our little story of how we've got where we have so far in, I guess, a mature market. So thank you very much for listening.
A hand, yes. A good story, and it makes you feel good. On the eminent Mitch Loxon, founder of the Business Process Association of Philippines. Please come on up. And heck of a nice fellow. These days, winner of the Lifetime Contributor Award at the International ICT Awards a few years ago. So a couple questions. Please think of questions, but I'll ask first a couple. But maybe both of you. But you know, the reasons. You know, Jono described a really compelling success story in Philippines, and hopefully, you know, Filipinos don't get arrogant or anything, but it's been, you know, there must be 100 other countries that want these jobs, these million or so jobs and so forth. And they're all working, all have worked hard over the past 10 years. And I remember Mitch going to different countries and talking to other countries, how can we learn from Philippines to improve and all that kind of stuff. But Philippines continued to succeed in this thing. But what are some of the key reasons, beyond the obvious ones, English communication skills and things like that? What do you think, Jono? You know, it's an outrageous situation.
I guess like I was saying, there are the cultural differences, but the cultural affinity here is much closer than other places. It is a really easy place to get a business going. You know, the challenges, I think, in getting something going in India, for example, Malaysia to some extent as well, are a lot more, it's a lot more extreme. I noticed I worked for a company that we had operations in India for some time, and although, look, it was successful, we couldn't get management that would stay there. The cultural shock was just a bit too much. I think people can come here and set up a business and feel at home as much as anything else.
Bjorn Martinoff, you had a question, Bjorn?
Actually, I just wanted to add to question one. In addition to the wonderful reasons you stated, both of you have stated for doing business, BPO business in the Philippines, I think we should not forget that from the customer perspective, what's also available is a great talent pool of local management and leaders, right? That may not be available in another new market that is available here, and not just available, but also very strong. The other one is there's a proven track record and a history of successes. So the customer can see the momentum, right? And what they're basically looking for, they're looking for certainty in doing business with someone. And when you have that certainty, then the rest kind of falls into place. The infrastructure is there, right? The talent is there, not just the frontline talent, but also the rest of the talent that's necessary, like local leadership and local management, which otherwise you may have to ship in at great cost.
Yeah, absolutely right. The dependency so much these days isn't on getting your expat management in. You know, there's a place for expat management in certain positions, sure. However, look, this is my management team sitting over here, okay? And they're, you don't see a lot of sort of expat faces sitting right there, okay? The difference between, 2002 and now is that you've got people who are, you've had a level of management that's extremely experienced now and who understand how the industry works, and to be honest, have refined processes beyond what were done onshore, and have actually refined things to a better standard than what they were being done before, in my opinion.
Very good. Oh, okay, Jim Donald?
I know the focus right now is on the BPO side, but I just wondered, John, I remember when you started out and all our employees were being paid minimum wage at 7,000 pesos a month. There was no telco to speak of that would provide enough support for what we were trying to achieve. We're now enjoying a very fruitful time, I think, with the economic growth we're seeing in the Philippines. To what degree do you think the success of the BPOs has spilled out to the other companies and the other businesses within the Philippines and has helped to spur that? Not just focusing on what the BPOs are doing, but how it has influenced in terms of strength of management, organization, performance management.
Yeah, I think people don't necessarily stay in BPO forever. And I think people can pick up, they can learn a really solid skill set, within the BPO industry and roll out into other areas. I guess sort of my experience, I speak from the BPO point of view. Well, the message I'm trying to get across is not just from the BPO point of view, it is an across-the-board thing.
That's a good question, and Mitch is a good example of that, because he started off in the BPO sector and then moved off to quite a senior role within PLDT. Anything to add with that, or are you seeing that sort of, yeah?
Okay, so to continue what John was saying, I think it will continue to grow. It probably won't grow double digits like for example, for the last 9 years. But it really all depends on how the Philippine BPO or the Philippine IT BPO industry can move up the value chain and doing more high value type of services, moving up to IT, back office function, focusing on the niche areas of animation, game development, and the likes, and healthcare management, outsourcing. And just as long as the government continues to support and the incentives and all the funding they pour in for our talent and training programs, and how fast the next wave cities can adopt. Because Metro Manila and Cebu and the big other cities can only take so much. So how fast can the rest of the next wave cities adapt? So that would be the key to the continued growth of the industry.
Good morning. I would like to ask a question. I believe Mitch is with a BPO, and is it possible, for example, to create a learning center to do languages, Mandarin or other languages, German and French, for example, so that to attract other foreign businesses that are not English speakers? Your thoughts, please.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Back then, when I was with BPAP in 2004, we did coordinate with some foreign language institutions to hopefully bring up Spanish or Japanese and maximize the Chinese languages. But I would agree with Joe, no, it's not scalable. There is still a lot of business to come around on the English-speaking side. We tried in Logica. When we were working with Logica, we supported different European languages when I was with them. We had to bring those fresh graduates from Europe to the Philippines and put them in the floor. So scalability will still be an issue. Putting up training institutions, in my opinion, I would only advise if you had a specific client or account that you needed to ramp up for, rather than building and trying to find, because most of the opportunities that are still coming in are still based on English. Yes, thank you.
Okay, a question right there. Please state your name.
Hi, my name is Joey from Vestas Wind Systems. Well, first I would like to thank you for a good presentation today. Well, during the time you started way back, it must be a different playing field right now compared to the time. So I just want to ask, what do you consider is something that remains to be the biggest challenge of the industry for those who are starting or want to start something like that? What remains to be the biggest challenge?
I don't think the challenge is any different to what it was when we started, to be honest. Again, it's a mature industry, and there's no point trying to go initially toe to toe with some of the really big guys. You're going to win some fights, and you're going to get a bloody nose from others. So I think the challenge is in coming up with a service offering that has some sort of a differentiation, that offers something different to what the other guys are doing. Do I have that idea in my head right now of exactly what that is? Not necessarily sure I do. I guess where my head is fairly immersed in what we've done so far. But you know, look, that took some thinking at the time as well to try and work out how we were going to break into the market. You know, it's looking for, you know, what everyone else is doing and trying to make a bit of a twist on it that makes you a little bit different. You know, makes you a more attractive entity to work with.
Very good. Okay, I think we're okay.